Okay, so hi, yeah, we're Space 4, and we're a co-working meeting and event space in North London in a place called Finsbury Park. And yeah, we're mostly home to digital activists and social innovators. We're run by a worker cooperative, and so we tend to attract people in the cooperative space, in the tech for good space, and also just charities and social impact organizations in general. We have like a co-working space, so we rent desks to freelancers and small organizations. We have a couple of meeting rooms, so we have like local organizations or like similarly aligned organizations like coming in and out of our space. And we also have an event space. So usually these discussion events, or not usually, but the ones that we've had so far this year have been in person in our event space. So this is actually, like I said, yeah, the first one we're doing online, and it's a bit different because if you're in our space, it's quite an informal DIY atmosphere, and I'm not sure how that translates today. But yeah, if you are in the London area, or if you're ever in London, you're more than welcome to come visit us or check out some of the events that we have going on. But something that really makes us stand apart, I guess, from other co-working spaces is that, oh, let me just go through that, is that we are run by a digital agency and a worker cooperative, as I mentioned, called Outlandish. And they're actually 2 floors above us, and they work in the tech for good space. And their mission is to make the world a better place through technology, cooperativism, and communication. And so as a cooperative, they put a lot of their profits back into social impact projects. And so Space 4 is actually one of their projects, and we were supported by Islington Council, which is the sort of municipality where we're based, to create an affordable workspace. And so we're not really for profit. We deliver a lot of social value for the borough, and our commercial prices, we often like have a pay in kind system, or we have a sliding scale for organizations that might need a bit of support. Yeah, Outlandish works with the third sector mainly. So like I said, in the tech for good space. So these are the kind of clients that we work for, a lot of like trade unions, a lot of charities, trade union charities, the public sector as well, activist groups, and people like that. So our events tend to be around these kind of subjects, the tech for good, progressive economics. Yeah. So this discussion event is part of a program events that we have in the space. We're trying to do 2 of these per month. So far, we've only had them in person, but we're going to try and do them 50-50. So, 1 a month is online and 1 is in person. And yeah, I'm really excited to welcome you all to this one about women today. I shared a little personal story on the LinkedIn marketing, and I thought I'd just share it again, just to give a bit of a personal touch, I guess, to the start of the event. I studied history, but I was always a technology enthusiast as a child, and I came right out of a history degree and wanted to become a front-end developer or web designer. And I did a multimedia design course in Copenhagen. I got a job at a software company, but there were actually no women developers in my company. And I never ended up becoming a front-end developer or a web designer. And it's not only because there weren't any women developers in my company, but it was definitely like when I was reflecting on it today, I think that was definitely a part of it, like the lack of role models. And that was 10 years ago in 2013. And now I find myself back in the tech world as an events programmer, and I work for a digital agency, Outlandish. And again, we don't actually have any women working as developers in our company, even in our organization, even though some of them are developers. And yeah, I'm not sure if we're going to cover that exactly in this talk, but I just wanted to open that up if anyone, at the end, if anyone wants to sort of lend some personal insight into why that may be, or yeah, I think that's some. I know that there are a lot more women developers now. Maybe there were back then as well, but that was definitely a personal experience that affected me. But anyway, this isn't about me. I'm sorry I've taken so long to chat about all that. We've got 3 brilliant speakers today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. The format of today is that they each have about 15 minutes to talk, and we'll take questions straight after each talk. And then we'll have a tiny bit of time at the end for discussion. I personally feel that it's a bit distracting when there's questions going on or like conversations going on in the chat. So as much as possible, if you wouldn't mind keeping your questions till the end of the presentations or till the end of the discussion, that would be great. But yeah, without further ado, Wendy from Tech Ladies, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, thanks for the introduction and the background and for having me today. I'll go ahead and share my screen and make sure I stay on target with my timer. So a bit about me, I lead hiring services at Tech Ladies, which is the largest organization for women in tech online in the world. I'm based in San Francisco, California, but most of our community members are living throughout the world. So I'm excited to be here all with you today. I'm also a career counselor and coach, previously in private practice, taking a break from that now because I work full-time for Tech Ladies and I don't want to burn out. So important to keep more women in tech. But my website about work stuff just has some thought leadership around underrepresented people in tech and the world of career coaching. So if you want to check that out, it's www.aboutworkstuff.com. I'll go into a little bit more about Tech Ladies in a few minutes. I'm excited to talk with you all today here from the standpoint of an advocate. So it's supporting women on International Women's Day, but it's also representing people who don't have a voice in tech, are trying to break in and finding a hard time getting their path in. And then I'm doing my part by raising 4 younger humans, 3 teenagers and 1 adolescent, coming out in the world, teaching them about the importance of inclusion also. So coming at this from the perspective of inclusion in tech, I spent a couple of years with Tech Ladies doing partnerships and talking with companies who share our values at Tech Ladies of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and are growing and trying to hire more women on their teams. And so I condensed some thoughts around what is important in terms of establishing your company from an inclusive perspective. So part of this is your brand. Approaching it from the early stage of a company. Tom, thanks for joining today. Glad you're valuing that and joined us today. Love what you're doing. And it's so important to establish from the beginning that you're trying to grow your inclusivity and diversity in your organization from the start. So how you present that out in the wild, on your website, on your social media stance, all of that matters because people who are on the job hunt and are looking into your company are paying attention to those things. So if they see, that you've got 5 or 15 men on staff and no women, that's sometimes a downer for someone who's considering applying. So why would they want to pick your company over another one? These are all things that we talk with our partner companies about at Tech Ladies to help them build a more inclusive approach to how they position their company and also their hiring. The next part is really around the hiring process. So creating an inclusive hiring process is so important. It starts with how you position gender neutrality in your job description. It is how you treat people during the interview process. It's being responsive to them. It's taking an unconscious bias course on how to present what you're about and what your company is about and how you approach people. And then from the gender diversity perspective, really putting it out there that you would like to hire people who are from all different parts of tech or breaking in, and how are you going to support that? Plus retaining the people that you have. All of these are hot topics right now because here in San Francisco Bay Area and Silicon Valley, where I'm at, so many people have been laid off. We've got a lot of job seekers, and I support them in my role at Tech Ladies by connecting them to opportunities. And then from the company's perspective, we think about retention in terms of, what are we doing to support the employees we have right now, whether it's Tech Ladies we've hired on our staff, or whether it's the rest of our staff who's thinking about making a change. So inclusion comes in lots of different ways, and these are just a few that I see out there in the world of our hiring partners and companies we're working with. So how can you do this? Well, it's practicing inclusive hiring. It's through the interview process, your job descriptions, when you bring someone into onboarding and you have a conversation with them about how they like to be managed. That's one way that you can really speak to including more women in your process and making them feel at home when they join. Love the comments in the chat around the chatbot today. Companies who mention IWD 23 are getting called out for their gender pay gap or lack thereof. And transparent compensation is huge. I don't know what it's like in the UK as much as I know what it's like in the States, but there's more legislation all the time around requiring transparency in compensation ranges and job descriptions. And our community of 200,000 members at Tech Ladies is made up of about, half engineers. So imagine about 100,000 engineers in our community. And when they're evaluating opportunities, if they're presented with a large range in two positions that have equal responsibility, which one do you think they're going to pick? The one that has transparency and lists the range, or the one that doesn't? Well, they're telling me that they want to work for the companies who are sharing what that compensation range is. And so more states are requiring this here in the US. And then we're also working with companies when we post their job descriptions on our job board and in our community about the importance of sharing what the compensation range is for a role. In this time of layoffs and budget cuts with both venture capital and well-established companies, professional development is often on the chopping block. And if you've worked for a company that offers a professional development stipend as part of your compensation, and you've been able to utilize that for conferences, for education, you know how important it is to have that. And so I would challenge anyone who's running a company or in a leadership role in a company to evaluate what kinds of professional development you're offering specifically to women. Are you promoting women within your company to new roles? Are you giving them a seat at the table in decision-making processes? Are you sending them to conferences to represent your company? All of those things are really important. Even if your company is not hiring right now in this uncertain job market, or if you've made layoffs, it's still so important to build a diverse pipeline. And what that means is if you typically hire through referrals, people that your employees know, or if you look at your staff and you have mostly men on staff, what can you do to change that going forward? Can you reach out to organizations like Tech Ladies or any of the other organizations who are represented here and talk with them about ways that you can build a diverse pipeline? So at Tech Ladies, we've got 200,000 women, at least half of them are actively job seeking, even more are passively job seeking. And so if you put a job description in front of our community, you're going to get applicants filling your pipeline. And that is so important to represent all genders. The other thing is, how can we amplify women's voices? So I really appreciate the opportunity to be talking about inclusion today, because it's obviously a topic I feel very passionate about and I've devoted my career to it. I often think, how can I amplify the voices of other women in our community and connect them to opportunities? And in fact, 5 years ago on International Women's Day, I was giving a talk around building your career roadmap to women who code members. And I met one of my favorite professional contacts there. We ended up kind of launching a little business together around a career lab for women moving into leadership. And so Alexis Wong couldn't join today to this session, but I really do appreciate being able to work with her on that and collaborating with her. And who knows, maybe one of you in the audience today will be a future collaborator. So those are some ways that if you're working in a company, looking to make changes, here are 5 suggestions you can embrace around expanding your approach to inclusion. And then if you're a job seeker, or if you're just thinking about your own career and what comes next, I wanted to also give you the perspective of some different ways that you might want to be thinking about your approach. So from my perspective, I don't actually work as a technical recruiter, but I connect our community members at Tech Ladies to tech companies who are partnered with us. And one of the things that I see is really a downfall of job seekers is not being crystal clear about what the next move looks like. So determining what you want what skills are needed and what experience is needed, and how that is, number two, reflected in your personal brand today as you move into the next role is so important. And so if you've been laid off, if you're worried about getting laid off, or if you're thinking about making a change, really think about how you can grow your personal brand and fine-tune your career story to make sure it's very clear when you tell the story of what you're about. You know, tell me about yourself is always like the first question in the interview process. Come at it from the perspective of, here's how I'm going to make an impact in the next company that I join, because that's so important to be forward thinking about it. Also, job seekers need to be planting lots of seeds right now because hiring freezes are happening, layoffs are happening, and it is taking a little bit longer for people to secure roles right now. So when I say planting lots of seeds, you can see I'm a plant obsessed. I have lots of them in my house and I love gardening. I equate that to putting yourself out there at events like this, applying to lots of jobs and connecting with a lot of people to talk with them about what's going on in their own space. Be organized and follow up. Once a week, follow up after you've been interviewing for a role is really important. And then taking care of yourself. I noticed one of our Tech Ladies members, Marna Schwartz, is here in the audience. Hi, Marna, thanks for joining. She specializes in burnout and really helps our community members and other people really recover from burnout and think about taking better care of themselves. This is so important in the challenge that we're facing right now in tech. So those are some of my ideas for job seekers. Okay, so let's get back to Tech Ladies for a second. I wanted to tell you a bit about our community. If you're not already a member, I encourage you to join. If you're a company who's thinking about building your own diverse pipeline, you can see we've got a huge social media reach. Half of our community members identify as a woman of color. We've partnered with hundreds of companies over the last decade to support them in their growth. Lots of engineers, in fact, engineering roles perform best in our community. And kind of the sweet spot for our community members is an average tenure of more than 5 years of experience. But if you're new to the industry and trying to break in, you're welcome also. And if you're senior and thinking about expanding your networking reach, there's also a home for you here. So giving you some info on how you can find us, www.hiretechladies.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I love to talk about this stuff on there. I'm not as active on Twitter. Tech Ladies is, though. You can follow us at Join Tech Ladies. So thanks so much for your time today, and would love to open it up to discussion and know what kinds of questions are on your mind now.
Thanks so much, Wendy. That was really a really great overview. Does anyone have any questions for Wendy at this point? If you put your hand up, or actually just speak, I think it'll be all right as well. No questions. I
Don't be
actually had a
shy, but I'm
question.
going to stick. Oh yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to stick around for the whole one. So if you think of something down the road too, I'll be around. Yeah, hit me, Natasha.
I had a question about, like you mentioned, transparent pay on job advertisements. I wonder if you know about, when there's a range, that could also be quite a difficult situation for people to pitch themselves to feel entitled to the higher pay. Do you have any reflections on that?
Yeah, it's tough because there's so much variability out there right now, especially with the growth of remote work opportunities and location-based pay. So, I'm coming from the San Francisco Bay Area where it's more expensive to live than, say, the middle of the US. And so this is a big issue for a lot of people who have relocated. It's hard to kind of come to terms with, if I used to make, let's say, $150,000 a year, and now I'm getting offered $90,000 because I've moved out of that area, am I really worth that much less? When you see a pay range, and let's use that same range, this role pays $90,000 to $150,000. This is actually a really common large range that I see in job descriptions. And so assume if you're at the upper end of experience level for that role, or if you're in a more expensive area, you're probably going to be closer to the upper end. But all of the things that can affect that pay range include where you're located, how much experience you have. And so really it's around setting the tone with how you tell your career story. But it is good to sync up on this in the early stages of the interview process because you don't want to waste your time or someone else's.
Okay, yeah, thanks. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions, or otherwise we can move on to the next speaker? Okay, great. Maybe there'll probably be more questions at the end, I think, as well. So yeah, Kay, do you feel ready to present to us? Oh, we do have a question actually in the chat. I'll read it out, Laura. Sorry, Kay, if that's okay, we'll just take this question before we move on. So from Laura M, the question is: once you're part of a company or an employee, what advice do you have for creating opportunities to grow?
Yeah, good question. So I definitely recommend putting together an individual development plan for yourself. So think about this as something you manage that pertains to your own professional goals and skills and experience that you want to gain in order to move into your next role. And it's not ever too early to do that. When you accept a new position, you're going to have plenty of opportunity to introduce yourself to people and set the tone for what you're about. And so if you've got career goals in mind, that might be something you want to share in those conversations. So it's always good to put together like a 90-day plan starting a new role that includes the impact you're going to make at that company. And at the same time, have an idea of what kinds of goals you have personally on how you want to develop yourself and set timelines on when you're going to do that within. Because once we write it down and we put a timeline on it, we're actually more likely to achieve that goal. And so holding yourself accountable is everything. All right.
Great, thank you, Wendy. I also happen to know that Kay is going to speak a lot on this topic. So awesome. That's probably a good time. That's probably a good time to hand over to you now, Kay.
Okay, perfect. So, oh, it's doing the weird highlighting. Let's see if we can operate with it in this mode or not. Can you all see the deck okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, so yes, my talk is a little bit different from Wendy's. I'm going to be talking about my own experiences in tech and a bit about how I got into tech, but also hopefully just some lessons, takeaways, and some things to think about, and then also connecting in with your personal brand and how you want to take your career forward in tech. So my journey, a bit of a convoluted one. I've had quite a few different careers. I started off in sales when I graduated from uni. I then moved into social market research, and then I found myself through good fortune in IT. It wasn't something that I was particularly planning, although I was an IT recruiter before I got into being in IT myself. So I worked in an internal IT department to start with, and I've fulfilled pretty much every role in a tech team apart from a developer. So I've been a business analyst, I've been a project manager and product manager, I've done software testing as well. So I decided to kind of push myself from being an employee in an internal department and sort of thinking, okay, what's the next step for me? And I wanted to become an IT consultant. And so I then sort of effectively became a freelancer where my work, I wasn't a permanent employee anymore. And it's one of those risk reward things. So, you do get paid a lot more money, but you get paid by the day. But if you don't work, you don't get paid. But that was a step that I wanted to take to challenge myself, because usually people who do that have a lot more experience. So at that point, I was working on really large projects. So I worked, this is the Sky News studio at the top there. I actually worked in the top corner, developing an app and a brand new website for Sky News. I worked at Barclays Bank in Canary Wharf, so sort of multi-million-pound web and mobile apps that I was creating. And I got myself a lot of qualifications as well. So I've got sort of qualifications across IT, performance and behavioural coaching and marketing as well. So one of the other things that I ended up doing was writing a book. And that's how I sort of started to move from being still sort of a consultant and sort of full into tech to actually bringing my skills across to the startup ecosystem and also operating in that world as well. So I've written a number of books. The first book that I actually wrote was this red one here, and that was really to help people develop their skills if they wanted to create a web or mobile app, and to actually break down a lot of the professional experience I had to kind of explain to people how to go about building an app from scratch if that was something that they wanted to do. So I've gone from being an employee to being a freelance IT consultant to now being a full-time entrepreneur. So I do a lot of mentoring these days, doing training, I speak and also judge at startup and business pitch competitions. I've been recognised by the Financial Times as being one of the most influential BAME leaders in tech in the UK. And last year I was fortunate enough to win 4 different business awards, and also to reach the finals of an additional 3. So it's been a really interesting and exciting time. So I just wanted to sort of go through really what that entailed, and how did I get to this point, and just share some of those concepts with you. So what does a seat at the table look like? You could see it as being involved in decision making, raising your profile, being able to have more of an impact, being included, and also sometimes it's about being able to influence others as well. So I just want to now sort of share some thoughts and ideas about how that happened for me, and maybe some takeaways. So for me, I'm very big on life design and being very strategic in everything I do, whether you're an employee, whether you're a freelancer, entrepreneur, etc. For me, it all starts with strategy. So you've got to be clear on what you actually want. So that's kind of the first thing, to kind of do that reflective sort of thinking and give yourself some quiet time to think, what do I actually want out of my career, go bigger out of my life, and, give yourself permission to really think about that, and give yourself that time and space, and start to get clear on that, and to build a bit of a vision for what you actually want for yourself. So once you've done that, then the next thing is thinking about the paths to get to where you actually want to get to. So what are the different options that are available? What routes could you take? What angles, how can you approach things if you want to go into a particular part of tech, for example, or you want to rise up the ranks and get yourself promoted? Like, what are the different ways to do that? So that can often involve a lot of research, speaking to people, just reaching out, just getting as many ideas as you can to sort of help you to build your knowledge about the different ways to go about things. Often one of the challenges is that people might know what they want to do, but they don't know how to get there, or some people don't know about the full range of options available. So I think research is really important. The other thing, of course, is your focus and being really committed to your goals as well. Of course, it's going to take you much longer if you aren't sort of really focused and clear on what it is that you want to do. So taking action, of course, really important. Again, no matter what it is, committing and thinking about how you want to move forward, and then consistently taking action that is going to move you step by step closer to your goals. And yeah, screw fear. Okay, in my work, whether I'm coaching people on careers and career building, or whether I'm coaching and supporting entrepreneurs, all I see a lot of the time is so much fear that people carry around with them, and it stops them sort of being everything they can be, and it stops them from doing the things that they want to do. So I really hate fear. Everybody has some fear, and that's okay, but often people almost have a huge amount of fear in proportion to what it is that they're trying to do. So going for something you want, building new skills, if it doesn't go well, it is not going to be fatal. Okay, so sometimes it's just thinking, okay, if you want to do something, how can you make this a calculated risk? You know, as long as you're not putting your life, your livelihood, your ability to eat on the line, then there's a lot of scope for you to kind of explore and try new things. So for anyone who's listening, please don't be too fearful, you know, to the stage that it affects you being able to move forward. Personal awareness is really important. One of the kind of hard lessons that I had was about you know, starting to know myself, understand my strengths, understand what potential that I had, and also staying open to feedback so that I could kind of hear from other people what skills or what qualities or what strengths they thought that I would need in order to get to where I wanted to go. Being very value focused as well as a professional, I think, is so important. So when I first started my career in IT, I wanted people to see what I was capable of, but sometimes you might forget that, you know, you need to show people first what you can actually do, and then the opportunities come. It's not the other way round. So when I started to realize that if I could look at what was going on in the team or in the company, look at gaps that I could fill and ways that I could help, that I could actually build my profile that way. And once I understood that, a lot more opportunities started to come my way. So I started kind of thinking about what I wanted and started looking at, you know, what my manager needed, what my team needed. And that was what actually opened the doors for me and started to help me to get my own seat at the table. So there's generally sort of, I guess, two broad routes. You've got being an employee and either becoming a leader through promotion. Often, you know, starting to build a team is one of the recognised ways of sort of moving up the ranks. Becoming an expert or subject matter expert. So that's another route for people as well. So not everybody wants to manage a team. If managing a team is not really your thing and you really enjoy staying hands-on, then when you're looking for opportunities, you might want to see if there are companies out there who value people who have a lot of skill and a lot of expertise, and don't necessarily push them into becoming managers. So something to think about there. You might also want to consult and go that route, so become an expert and do something similar to what I did. So rather than being a permanent employee, starting to become self-employed and going for agencies to become a consultant or contractor. Then you've got the entrepreneurship route, where you can actually create your own table. So becoming your own boss gives you a lot of freedom and flexibility. So that might be something to think about. And, you know, as you're working in your career and the skills that you're gaining, sort of thinking about how that might translate into building your own business yourself. So other things that helped me were, first of all, sort of developing my expertise and experience. The more, I believe that the more you know, the more value that you have. So I'm very big on continuous learning, personal development and that sort of thing. The other thing is building your confidence as well. So do write down as you progress through your career what you've achieved and any wins that you've had, because not only will it build up your confidence, but also these are things that you can add to your CV as well. Any proof that you've got is also great as well. I guess now, because we live in a more digital age, there's more chance that you might have some sort of visual proof that you can add to a profile that can build up your brand. It might also be things like certificates, but just anything that you can show to employers that can help to, you know, not, I'm not just saying that I can do these things, but you can actually see and get a sense of what I can do as well. So hustle is another really important thing too. So if you're not using LinkedIn, dusting off your profile and getting out there networking, whether you do that online or whether you do that just by connecting with people on LinkedIn and attending events like this where you can exchange details with people. And don't be afraid to knock on doors. So just reaching out to people, there's nothing wrong with doing that. And the more you do that with strangers, the more comfortable you will become with it. And the more comfortable you get, you won't think anything of just contacting somebody that you might be interested in getting to know. And that's how a lot of opportunities can arise. So mindset is so important. One of the great things I think about being in sales as my first career, it was very difficult, but I learned that if you don't ask, you don't get. So I think that's very relevant with jobs as well. So not being afraid to put yourself forward for positions as well, not talking yourself out of opportunities. If you see an opportunity and you feel that you're relevant for that, going forward for it. There has been a lot of research about the differences between women and men, and that women will underrate themselves and men will overrate themselves. So if a woman is you know, an 8, 9 in her career, she might rate herself a 6 or 7, whereas a man may be a 7 and he might rate himself as a 9. Okay, there's a lot of research about this sort of thing. People or women in particular not going for certain jobs because the job title makes them nervous and they think, oh, you know, can I do that? And then, you know, they don't apply. So don't talk yourself out of opportunities. If you're 70-80% there, apply. You know, don't discount yourself. I think one of the things is sort of thinking to yourself, you know, how can I, as well, if you want to do something. So rather than thinking I can't, it's always, again, going back to that strategy of, you know, how could I make this happen? What ideas can I brainstorm? Who can I speak to? Who can help me see how I might be able to get myself or maneuver myself into a position where I can get close to the opportunity that I want. I'm very big on planning and preparation, and I think that's something that's really important. It sort of goes back to that life design that I mentioned earlier, and just really thinking about how you can do different things and how you can take ideas forward. Be persistent. Expect some struggle, expect some challenge in achieving your goals. It's not always going to be plain sailing, and I think if you're kind of ready for a bit of challenge, then it's going to be easier for you. If, you know, when you start to reach a little bit of resistance, you're expecting it, and you know that you just have to just, you know, keep pushing forward. So one of the things I always say, sort of going back to fear, is that you don't have to not have any fear, but you just have to move forward despite feeling that fear. And I think that's something that's really important. One of my favourite quotes is from Nelson Mandela as well, which is, I never lose, I either win or learn. And I think if you have that mindset when you're going forward in life, whatever it is you want to do, it can make you less fearful and more positive, because everything's a learning experience. Even if things don't go to plan, or you don't get that job the first time, or you feel that you know, you want that seat at the table and it's not happening yet, that, you know, the worst that you can do is to learn from the experience. So thanks very much for your time, and if anyone's got any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Kay. I really liked that, what you said at the end about moving forward in spite of the fear. Someone once gave me that advice of, like, when you're nervous about something, they're just like, you will be anxious and it will be okay. And that's I really think that, like, all the time, like, I am anxious, but it's going to be okay. There's nothing I can do about the anxiety. So I really resonate with that. But yeah, does anyone have any questions for Kay?
There's a question in the chat, Natasha, if you've seen that.
Oh, okay, great. Let me go down. I'll read it out for everyone. So from Eliane, it says, both Kay and Wendy stress the importance of having a clear vision for your career and getting experiences and skills needed for your goal. Do you have tips or tools for how to create such a vision for oneself? With the tech world being so broad, it can be difficult to know what role fits you best.
Wendy, would you like to start, or shall I start and hand over to you? Okay, so I think there's a few ways you could do it. I'm also a trained behavioural coach, so I also bring sort of coaching to the way that I do it. So one could be almost like, it might sound a bit woo-woo, but, you know, just closing your eyes and just imagining what your life could be like, and imagining different facets of your life, and then thinking about your work and vision, you know, envisioning, you know, does that look like going into an office for you? Does it look like working from home? What kind of skills would you like to be using? How do you see your career developing? You know, is your end game entrepreneurship, or do you want to be managing a massive team? You know, where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And what kind of work, small team, large team, small company, big company? So start to think and envisage, and just write down kind of what it is that you see and the things that you think are going to make you happy. That's one way you could do it, and then kind of writing those things down and getting more and more clear in your head about what it is that you want. The other thing is that you could just do tons of research. So you could look up loads and loads of different roles in tech, and make sure that you look at the sort of job descriptions and the descriptions of what the day-to-day activities would be like, and then write down ones that you're most attractive to, and then you're going to work back, you know, what skills do I need to get that job, what salaries do they pay, and what career progression is there in that position, and do it like that. So I think there's a few things, and maybe you could do both to be really thorough and build your plan from there.
I will add to that if that's okay. Good question. I just put in the chat a resource you might want to use for this. So it's a checklist that I created for tech ladies. There's a job search tracker on there. And I think adding to what Kay said, I'd like identify what kinds of roles are interesting to you and what's the common denominator among them. And can you identify like a dream job based on those skills that are required or the experience required, and then like really start to fine tune it. Myself, even when I discovered what kind of work I wanted to do after I went to grad school, a lot of what helped me out was doing informational interviews from people doing interesting work that I could find on LinkedIn. Though I will say, I think I sent about 20 messages and I got one response, but that one response was so thorough and full of helpful ideas that it really carried me into the first role that I got. So hopefully those are some helpful ideas too.
Thank you both. I hope that helps with your question, Eliane. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, great.
Sorry,
yeah.
Kay, sorry, I've got a question. This might not be relevant, but I'm thinking sort of like inclusion in quite younger people, like because I've got my kid here, by the way, but she's you know, she's interested in this stuff already. My 10-year-old is, and I think for me it's like, where do we kind of get them to become interested at a very young age? And I don't know, like, it's kind of a broad question, obviously. But whether you know about kind of organizations that can kind of, you know, get them kind of in that mindset very early on.
So there are now a lot of startups that are coming up that are offering coding and tech skills for younger children. So that's something that you could look for. Unfortunately, off the top of my head, I can't think of any specific companies, but you could sort of Google tech for children and things like that, and you'll find lots of options that are coming up. The other thing is places like Khan Academy, KHAN. So they offer a lot of free training and coding and things like that. So that could be an option. And I think with Khan Academy, I don't think you have to pay for the training on there. So yeah, and I think there are also different academies as well for young people that you could try.
Great, thanks.
Okay, well, if there's no more, oh, well, Irina has an answer to the question as well, Maddie. There's so many resources to learn coding through games and books with pictures and cartoons. Oh yeah, I could imagine that actually.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Irina. That's probably a good segue to say, would you like to take the stage now and tell us about yourself and Women Who Code?
Yeah. Like, to continue to answering previous question, I just today see the manga that explain with cartoons physics, mathematics, Fourier, and etc. And I thought, oh, come on, I want to be like right now as a student. There are so many resources right now that's made by creative people to explain difficult subjects through cartoons and etc. And yeah, I love this direction, whereas the world is going. Yeah, and let me share my presentation. So yeah, I'm going to. You can hear me, right? So yeah, thank you so much for asking me to join this amazing panel. I'm going to speak about Women Who Code and actually Women Who Code London. A little bit about myself. I have 7+ years experience in tech industry. So I finished STEM degree with bachelor and master, actually in Russia, and I started to work during my master. I started with a very small position in consulting, but then I realized, okay, I want to do coding, and yeah, I learned Java through Coursera actually, but it helped me to find my first job, and I started to contribute in big bank. Then I found a job in Yandex, which is like Russian Google, and it required to learn a lot of algorithms and data structure to get the job there. But it was an exciting journey. And then I moved to London, and right now I'm working for Revolut, which is fintech services, and I hope that that provides very good services, and I contribute for it. And I really like my goal to actually contribute in something that can change life of people and of million people. And to be honest, I always was confused with this profession to be actual developer, and I didn't see any role model. And when I came to London, the first thing that really supported me is Women Who Code London. I joined an offline event. It was before lockdown, and I was really inspired that such community exists. And yeah, I've seen a lot of women that working in this industry, and they did very interesting tech talk. So I started to contribute in this community after a year. I bring my first tech talk there, and I worked in another company, and I did a lot of things on open source. So I decided to give a talk on open source technologies. Then I started to build the first mentorship program in this community, and I finished as a director of this community. And yeah, I also love to speak at conferences, discussions, and I love to create materials like object-oriented programming workshop and etc. And I also love to mentor other people and help them to get the job of their dream. So let me share a bit more about Women Who Code. So the mission of Women Who Code is to empower diverse women to excel in technology career. And we have a vision where a tech industry and diverse women and historically included people thrive at every level. And we have values, which is focus on the mission, design for inclusion, advocate for change, and journey forward. And Women Who Code have 320,000 members all over the world. On this slide, you see our volunteers, and they're actually not based in London. The one is Eleonora, and she is as a director now, and she is based in Amsterdam. And our evangelist Ayla, she's based in Turkey. So really open to women across all countries. And right now it's represented in 147 countries. And as I said, it's not limited for women to be in the same city to contribute to Women Who Code. So more about Women Who Code London community. Today we have two directors. It's me and Eleonora Belova. And we have designer who really helped us to prepare a lot of resources and inspired us as well with very good design. We have several leaders which really help us to build our community, and evangelists who help us to spread about our community across social networks. We really grew up in last year, so you can see some numbers here. And yeah, it's a great job actually to deliver a lot of content and to attract more and more people in our community. Previous year, we built mentorship program 3.0. So you see that every program, the number of participants is growing, and we really rebranded it for this year. So mentorship program 2023, mentorship program 4.0 is even more exciting. And please check out on our sites how to enroll for it. We publish articles. We publish it for Women Who Code blog. The one of my favorites that's delivered by Nadia Zhuk is 5 tips to having successful one-on-one with your line manager as an engineer. And I really recommend to have a look at it. We have book club and we read different books on business and leadership, and also coding books, which is very exciting. We have a machine learning group, and really cool things that we launched previous year. We launched machine learning competition. So women together solved the task from Kaggle, and they learned a lot, not only from solving this task, but also they learned a lot from each other. We do some tracks, like in 2021, we did algorithms and data structure track. In 2022, we did object-oriented programming track. And this the very good material for people who didn't have a chance to learn these things at university or through paid courses, so they can learn from us for free. We did mock interviews program that is about, before going to the real interview, you can do the mock interview. You can do it with another person, and it really helps to be prepared, to feel more comfortable during the interview. And we are going to run more of these programs this year, and it really helps people to find out how to deal on the actual real interview. We do career progression events, so it's different discussions, how to put career goals, how to prepare to the interview again, what to do actually if you're already senior in your position. Is there a life after senior? And yeah. So we also have in Women Who Code scholarship programs, and yeah, we also launched resume clinic. So if you want someone to review your resume, you can submit it in the channel in Slack, and yeah, you are very welcome. And in summer, we also had a mental health day, so we ran the yoga session. So I think it's very exciting to build all these things in one place. And currently, we also started collaboration with universities, because if you want to fix pipeline, you need to start from schools and from universities. So this summer, we are going to do our first conference with the Open University. And yeah, we are going to share our experience in tech industry, that it's possible to grow there, to build a career. And yeah, I think we will be able to attract more women in tech, because we start to show them with role models. And right achievements that we had previous year, Actually, we have 2 volunteers who were endorsed this UK Global Talent Visa. And yeah, women who connected as a main referrals here. And I think it's really important because not everyone has the right to work in UK. And sometimes people have to apply for skilled worker visa, but Global Talent Visa gives them much more flexibility and ability to work for any companies they want. So volunteering for women who can help to be recognized as a leader in tech industry. And we have different volunteers, our leaders, who also learned a lot about leader skills and were promoted in the workspace or find any job that they wanted. And the last thing to say is, dear women, we need you, and that is from tech industry. And yeah, thank you so much for your attention here. Please follow us, and I will share this link in the chat.
Thank you so much, Irina. That was great. Great to know how much that Women Who Code is doing in London. That's brilliant.